on into the space. Welcome everybody to Unlearning Hatred of Women on this March 1st, 2023, first day of Women's Month. We'll give people another couple of moments to arrive. If you do not already have your coffee, your tea, your kombucha, whatever it is that you need to be in this space and be present, please go grab that now. Get your popcorn, get your snacks, let your dog out, put your cat in your lap. We're going to get started in just a couple of moments. I would ask that while you're waiting, everybody please send healing thoughts to your favorite producer and mine, Laura K. Chamberlain. She's got cramps. Why? Because she's got a uterus, and once a month, we all know that sometimes our uterus gets crampy. So just extend like a healing hand, whatever you want. And what do you got there? Chocolate?
This is salted dark chocolate walnuts. I would deeply encourage on-camera snacking for everybody to join me so that I'm not alone as I wear this rice pad and embrace our theme and our very open community.
What I would like everybody to think deeply about is how bad cramps must be if the same antidote to dementors is the same thing as period cramps. Like they can literally suck the life out of your nostrils. And yet we do this every 29 to 33 days, depending on your cycle. This is the type of conversation we're going to be having today. And I know that you are as excited as I am. So we will get started in just a couple of moments as we let the, what was it, like 250 people who registered for today find their way into us. If you'd like to tell us a little story about your cramps in the chat while you're waiting, feel free. This is a safe space for sharing. Marcia's like, I already did. I love it. Let me see. Yeah, 100%. Oh, that is dementors, right? What's a Patronus for? I mean,
I feel like it's gotta be the chocolate bunny.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it's certainly not like a stag or a doe. I need something like more powerful.
Yeah, for those who have not read all of the Harry Potter books, this conversation will make a little bit less sense. Yeah, but dementors are very bad.
Yeah, calling out that cultural reference, time and space to a specific age and everything. And then that's a whole nother episode of, can we separate the art from the artist? Because clearly J.K. Rowling has said some things that make us feel as though we cannot really support her art anymore. Ooh, we'll bring that up in next month's topic. Let's delve in. Welcome, everybody. Couple of housekeeping things. First of all, you can go down to the bottom of your Zoom screen, that's where it is on mine, and turn on live captions. If you click enable captions and turn that on, you can also enable that live transcript to run on the right side. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to our producer, Laura Kay, in the chat, and she will support you. Our live ASL interpretation is already rolling. Thank you, Stephanie. Our community guidelines can be found just a click away. If you haven't read those and this is your first time in this space, we ask you to take a moment and check in on those guidelines. We set an intention in this space together for learning, growth, and development, not for being judge and jury of one another. And those community guidelines are very important to us. If those are intentions that you feel as though you cannot hold today, then we ask you to give yourself permission to leave. Come back another time. You will always be welcome. You are just welcome while holding our intentional community together. We're going to be recording. Remember that you will only be captured in the recording if you speak. Otherwise, you can have your camera on. We can look upon one another, and you will not be in that recording, just the panelist. And if at the end you come up to ask a question. We'll be sharing out a reflection afterwards, as always, and you will see that in this deck as well as in your email. Shout out to our ASL partners. When was Rihanna's concert that we all saw that was gently interrupted by football, right? Did everybody see that ASL interpreter? Oh my goodness. And now I follow her and I'm like watching, I was like listening to Beyonce and watching, oh my God, that is how I feel about our pro bono partners. Stephanie, Jared, thank you so much for being here. If you are thinking about leveling up on your accessibility, go ahead and take the action. It's that easy. Reach out to Pro Bono and they will be there to support you. Sojourn DEI is our new DEI tech platform that is happily truckling along. So happy for all the people who are now actually subscribed and using Sojourn, who are on the call today. We've been learning so much from you about how to help you keep taking action in your DEI program, move from just talking to action. Everything that you need is in Sojourn. Dedicated work paths and work streams, workshops that are hybrid, pre-recorded, as well as live trainings that are accessible, tools to help you launch and keep your DEI journey active, as well as surveys, as well as topics to keep driving your team back to one resource hub. So excited that Sojourn is really taking off and so excited to be on that journey with you. But if you're a bigger organization and you are still looking for large scale enterprise size DEI partners, then through our consulting arm, we are still ready to support you. So just reach out with any questions or thoughts in order to implement your 2023 DEI plan. Let's take a breath together as we always do. I know we're transitioning from different places and different spaces. That's a song. Wide open places. Who is that? Come on, somebody shout it out. New faces. Who is that? Come on.
Dixie
Chicks.
Dixie Chicks. But now they're just the chicks, right? They don't
They're
call
just
them
the chicks now.
but
Yes,
just
the chicks.
Let's take a deep breath together. Inhaling in. Exhaling out. Inhaling in. And exhaling out. Let's meet our panel today. Joining us is Rosie Young, a trauma-informed mental wellness coach and non-violent Jedi warrior. Cannot wait to unpack that term. Focused on anti-racism, anti-patriarchy, and wealth redistribution. Rosie is on a mission to decolonize corporate Canada and heal our workplaces from the patriarchal Western ideals, which are embedded in corporate systems and internalized in employers and employees. Rosie, welcome, and thank you for, I want to name my stereotype around like all things Canadian. We're like, oh, but you're so nice. You can't possibly be redistributing wealth and fucking shit up. Rosie's like, no, check your assumptions and your prejudices. Thank you, Rosie, for being on the virtual couch today. Joining us is Amani Will, a singing poet, beatman, fractal liberationist, embodied, mindful, intergenerationally therapeutic, creative liberation coach, counselor, and counsel for change makers in a changing world. Amani creates spaces for men to heal from their unconscious hatreds of the feminine aspect, who want to be in better relationships with themselves and the women in their lives. Amani, thank you for being here. We cannot have a conversation about unlearning hatred of men without men here to be deeply engaged in this conversation. Thank you for being here on the couch today. Also joining us is Amy M.K. Davies. Is it a pattern that at LTHJ Global you have to use your middle initials? I think it is. Amy serves as the design lead, or as we call her, the design unicorn for LTHJ Global. Every pretty little thing that you've ever seen here, even probably my face, Amy was the designer behind it. She brings to this, okay, my mom's probably on the call and probably takes a little bit out. She granted that statement. She did some work too. She brings to this role 15 plus years in the graphic design field, in a lifelong pursuit of nearly everything creative. You all are going to be so amazed to learn about how design even impacts this conversation on unlearning hatred of women. Amani, Rosie, Amy, thank you for being here. And I'm your host, Lindsey T.H. Jackson. They call me America's DEI teacher because apparently I like people, which I didn't know that you could be a teacher and not like people, but we learn new things every day. I'm a founder and lead at LGHA Global and Sojourn, social scientist, researcher, author, speaker, and the host of today's show. So Amani, Rosie, Amy, I was thinking about this morning while walking to Chala, and I have this question for you, and if you allow me, I'm just going to tell a little story. So come on up on the virtual couch and let me wax lyrical for a second. About 8 years ago, 3 months and like 4 days, I am thinking that I'm going to the bathroom. And, you know, I kind of waddle into the bathroom, sit down as you do. But turns out I wasn't going to the bathroom. Turns out that all of a sudden I kind of went like this. And it was my daughter's head coming out of my cervix through my vaginal canal. And I kind of stood up like this. And I reached down and I caught her head in my hand. This is in the bathroom at the house. And then my best friend comes walking in because my husband is like screaming on the phone, not really useful in the moment. And so my best friend kind of waddles in and she's like, hey, I wanted to know if you wanted to have coffee. And I look at her and she looks at me and she notices that I'm holding Taylor in my hand with her head, like, and she dives down on the floor. And I kind of slide down on the floor and we catch the rest of Taylor in our hands. And so this is how my daughter is born. And this makes me wonder, why is it that when we talk about being strong and like, you know, stepping up to hard challenges, we say, you know, grow a pair of balls? Because I've squeezed a fucking human out of my vagina and caught her with my own hands. Rosie, make it make sense.
Can I first just applaud that I'm hearing the words here, see vagina, cervix, uterus, baby, squeezing, catching. Thank you. Thank you for starting us off talking about women's body parts like it's normal and not disgusting.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It is normal, is how we are made. This is how we freaking bring life into the world. And guess what? Companies run by men, all these people, all the talent that you're saying, where's all the talent? They're coming out of women's vaginas. That's where they're coming from. So yeah, maybe not directly answering your question, Lindsey, but I think that part of unlearning, and hatred doesn't have to be, I hate women, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, I think women are terrible. Talk about stories. I was doing a consulting project with a very large company and presenting my results. And the project happened to be what's going on with our women, because the annual HR people survey results, all the women rated their responses lower than the men in terms of how they viewed the organization. I'm like, not surprising. And I go, but we don't know what's going on. And I'm like, have you talked to them? Maybe instead of just looking at metrics and data, have you talked to them? So I talked to them. And when I presented the results to the executive team, out of which like 8 out of 10 were men. And I had in my report, my very long report, I had the words misogyny. And so one of the men executives said, you use the word misogyny, that's a very strong word. Did you observe or hear of any like any harassment or anything intentional damage or harmful against the women? And I had to think about it. I was like, nothing intentional in terms of I hate women, I'm out to get women. There were certainly intentional actions that were very damaging to the women emotionally and to their careers. But more importantly, why are we even asking that question? Like, why does it have to be something was intentional or something was violent or something was, enough damage, enough of a damaging action against women that we would say, okay, that's misogyny, but this over here doesn't qualify as misogyny. So I think it just starts with opening the conversation where I would say it's misogynistic to shut down when it's like, oh, Lindsey, that's not professional to say vagina in a Zoom. It's being recorded, Lindsey, it's being broadcast. That's not very professional. To me, that's misogyny when we silence women and silence speaking about women.
Yes, yes. This is Lindsey. Amani, even as we get started here, Rosie's talking about, this experience that in our research as well at LTHJ Global, we hear is very common for women across various industries, various income brackets, various identities across race, gender, expression. Isn't this conversation just dividing men and women more? Aren't we just hating men by bringing this up?
Thank you for bringing up that divisive point that some might experience or have heard before. Absolutely not. Like with all systems of oppression, all systems of violence, all systems of division, we have to identify an issue in order to deal with it. That would be like a doctor being like, why are you coming to me and talking about your kidney hurting? That's just going to make it worse. Just go home and don't talk about it, okay? So we have to have these conversations. And like you're saying, Rosie, because it is in the air that we breathe, because we've all internalized it, men and women and folks beyond the gender binary have all internalized the hatred of women in a system that is run by heteronormative, Abrahamic, extractive capitalist, white supremacist patriarchy, where power is recognized, Lindsey, as men's enactment of violence and dominance rather than giving life, so we have to begin to look at it, to undo it, to realize where it is, and to reclaim and find other ways of being.
Yes, this is Lindsey. Amani, can you define Abrahamic?
This is Amani, thank you. Abrahamic, coming from the monotheistic Judeo-Christian Islamic traditions that have come with, not to blame those, but the ways that those have come with patriarchy, have made God as a man, have told us that men are to take dominion over the earth as a woman. So a root of so much of the hatred of women, the domination of women, the dehumanization of women, the taking away divinity from women.
Yes, yes. This is Lindsey. Amy, you so often talk about how the images that we see reinforce patterns of thought, patterns of speech, patterns of how we interact with one another throughout the world. And a lot of your graduate study really focused on this. Can you say more about that?
I
Can you
can.
just read your dissertation, Amy, from?
Oh, this is Amy. I'm not going to go into all of it because that was like 85 pages of way too much, and I wouldn't put all of you guys through that. Before I got into design, I got my degree in women's studies with an emphasis in queer theory and film. And so film theory especially looks at how the camera looks. And the camera looks at people like it's a gaze, and the way that we are all, especially in these virtual spaces, looking at each other on screens or on phone screens, look at people in a certain way. And how that camera is positioned changes how that other person is seen, whether they have power or a lack of power, whether they are a subject or an object. And there's a whole set of feminist theory from Laura Mulvey in the 70s and 80s, sort of heart of the second wave, that talks about how it is that we internalize that gaze and how we look at other people and also at ourselves based on how we see representations of ourselves. So I was working with a not LTHJ Global client recently, And all the photos on their website were taken from above. It was all that sort of new trendy drone photography stuff. Like you're looking down from a second floor and a whole group of people in an office. Well, but if all of those people in that office are not white, then you're shifting the power of how that image is portraying all of those people, because you're literally looking down on everyone. And instead of being a good, beneficial representation of, look, this is our team and we're doing work, it's inviting the person who is seeing that website to look down on everybody. Sorry, you know, I can't keep it short ever, really, with things, Lindsey. You know this.
This is Lindsey. I didn't invite you here for brevity. You know, it's so interesting when I was just having a conversation yesterday with Laura Redman, and she was talking about a Barbie doll that came out. I was about 10. She said she was about 20 at the time. And it is a Barbie that talked, I guess. And one of the things that Barbie said was, math is hard. Rosie, can you remember growing up those images that influenced your self-view, your view of yourself as a woman and your place within society?
Oh gosh, Lindsey, it's so good that you didn't invite us here for brevity. Ironically, actually, you're using math as the example. I just saw something online that was meant to be helpful to empower women, blah, blah, blah. And yet it was really reinforcing those types of messages you're referring to, I think. Oh, I'm so sorry. I keep forgetting. This is Rosie speaking. What I do remember from childhood and what I think keeps getting reinforced is the shame. There's too many examples to even list them all out, but I think that even the title of our talk today, the idea of unlearning hatred of women, what perhaps is not well understood is that as women, we need to unlearn the hatred of ourselves. It just gets it's so internalized and we don't even realize it, because where do we get the encouragement? Where do we get applauded on a regular ongoing basis that this thing that didn't maybe quite work out, it's not even a failure, it just didn't quite work out and that's okay. Or you can do great things. Or math isn't hard, well, let's practice together, right? Like the support and the walking with, that I feel like that's really missing a lot. And on the numbers piece, so by background, confession time, I'm an accountant. Don't hold it against me, please. I'm trying to get away from that. And it's actually not that I think it's a bad profession. It wasn't my passion. And ironically, accounting is not about numbers. Like people will actually say, oh, you're an accountant, you must be good at numbers. I'm terrible at math. In Canada, the designation was shortened to CA, Chartered Accountant. And we had this inside accounting joke that CA just means can't add. That's what calculators are for, right? Why would we need to add in our heads? But I also never felt incapable of it. And that's not because I'm particularly literate or because I have all this self-confidence in myself, which is what traditional financial literacy teaches, is like, well, women, you need to believe in yourself. You need to find a network of people to mentor you. It's like, no, actually, it starts with privilege. I am this fortunate mostly because I have privilege. I'm not particularly financially literate. I have financial support from my family and others. Financial literacy, unless you're teaching me how to get blood from a stone, is not actually going to be that helpful in a system where women are across the board pretty much at a disadvantage compared to men. So I don't even remember what your original question was now, Lindsey, but I think it's just the shame and the ongoing shame. Yeah, that's the ongoing shame, or even today in 2023 for Women's History Month, these financial literacy programs that say they're about empowering women, I read it and I just think these are just more shameful messages about why don't you believe in yourself more, right? Why don't you talk to your kid? Don't be part of the problem. Talk to your kids about numbers. That is helping talk to your daughters about numbers. It's It's like, gosh, could you be any more shaming?
Yeah, this is Lindsey. Before I ask Amy, can you add on in terms of what were some of those early messages that you received about being a girl? And if I can set you up, I have heard you talk about from a very young age, you were quite tall.
Mm.
What
Yes.
is it like in
Actually,
the world, 6'1"?
a couple of things before height. I have to say that I always loved the Barbie question, because when I was born, my mother, bless her, outlawed Barbie in the house. No family member was to ever give me one. No, no gifts, no anything that were a representation of that particular flavor of womanhood.
Mm.
Eternally grateful for that. I am now not quite 6 feet, yay shrinking. I topped out at about 6'2". I was 5'8" when I was 11 years old. There is something with height that gets associated with masculinity, which gets associated with power. And I learned that very, very quickly, because if I was going to have to put up with all the kids in my class asking me how the weather was up there, I was going to get something back out of it, damn it. And getting picked on for things. So there is always something that I get deferred to in meetings. If I'm one of a couple of women and I'm the one who gets to end up being the spokesperson for us. And it's interesting how, especially in a group that is standing, that happens. It's like, oh, well, here, you just you go to the front, you talk to everybody, you do. And it's one of the reasons that I have dearly loved this particular variety of communication since the pandemic, because we are all at eye level to each other, and there isn't that shift in power. We can actually meet eye to eye.
Yeah, yeah. This is Lindsey, and none of us are wearing pants, so we're not judging one another on whether or not your pants are more expensive than mine. Amani, can you remember some of the first messages that you were being taught about girls, about women, about your relationship to them, what it was meant to be? And because I asked this in the sense of, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that at a young age you were being cultured as male. And so did you at a very young age see a clear distinction between how you were treated, how you were meant to behave, and how you were meant to relate to those who are being cultured as female?
This is Amani. Absolutely. So at home, both my mother and my father did and do work around these issues and around equity, justice, diversity, inclusion, and healing all of this. And so I got a lot of support to be my full self and to defend against or filter those messages that I got outside the home. But outside the home with my peer groups, it was very clear that one of the worst things that I could be is feminine or likened to a girl. Those were fighting words. If you were that, that meant you had no power. If you had no power, that meant people didn't like you, wouldn't hang out with you, people would hurt you, people would steal from you. Your bodily safety was at risk. Yeah, so that was like pervasive, still is pervasive, has always been pervasive in the world around me. And even though I had such strong messaging at home and such support in my community to not take that on or take that in or internalize those ideals, I have still had to do a lot of intentional work continually to make sure that it doesn't get stuck in here, that I'm not, unconsciously internalizing that.
This is Lindsey. I think often when we come to these types of discussions, I hear us always framing it through the lens of what we who identify as women in that beautiful umbrella of that term are lacking, what we are losing, what we are fighting for. Amani, what are men losing by being taught to hate women, being taught to hate their feminine?
This is Amani. Thank you for that question. And this is such a powerful, such an important place for us men and for all of us to really pay attention, right? Because, you know, one of my teachers says that patriarchy is at the foundation of slave culture, is at the foundation of extractive capitalism, is at the foundation of all other systems of violence. And it is when we ask men to stop being human, to stop being whole, to stop being empathetic, to separate in our cultures the roles of what's allowed, to give power to the role of men, to take power from the role of women, and where power lies is dominance, violence, always knowing what to do, always being in control, never having feelings, never being impacted by anything unless it's rage or wit or humor. That destroys us, that makes us violent to ourselves and to everybody else. It makes us unfamiliar. It makes us strangers to ourselves and to our emotional world and to our psyche. It makes us dependent, actually. It does this kind of opposite thing that it's supposed to do, dependent on those who are holding emotional intelligence, and then furious because we've given away our control when we're not supposed to. And so it sets us up to have these horrible relationships with women and with those who are embodying femininity or those things that have been given to women in this culture. Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible situation for everybody.
Yes, yes. This is Lindsey. On that, if I can name quite personally, I've been engaged in my own practice of trying to heal internalized patriarchy for myself. And Rosie, I wonder if you've noticed in your own practice, I find that in being so expertly taught to hate myself as a woman, that I am also, I project that onto my male partner, right? Any show of femininity or what we associate with femininity in him, I'm extremely, on one hand, I'm saying, well, in my partnership, my partner doesn't need an invitation to be more emotional. He's trying to give me that invitation. As a Black woman, you're allowed to have your feelings. But I'm like, oh my God, we're just watching Encanto, why are you crying, right? But, and because for me, I've been taught that that is not a sign of strength, that that is not attractive in my male partner. How have you worked through that? Or is that only me? Am I the only person who has a problem? You can say it, Rosie, you're a counselor. You know, Lindsey.
You are not alone at all, Lindsey. And thank you for saying it first, because you're reminding me actually something that I conveniently forgot about myself, which is exactly that. Like, I feel like kind of a hypocrite, I'll be honest, like to come here and say, yes, women power, we deserve more. And I don't know that I've gotten over this. I'm not dating anyone right now. This is Rosie speaking. I am a cis het woman. And I remember thinking, well, I want my boyfriend or husband to be a good driver, because I associated that with masculinity. And I think what's also deeper than that too is we may not be thinking it, but really the whole, like, why are you crying at Encanto, or why are you driving like a girl, is real. It's really about power, right? There's something about, I want to feel protected. I want to see my man as this dominant, strong guy. So without verbalizing that necessarily, it became why am I the strong one? Why am I the leader in this relationship? If I drive more aggressively than my male partner, then what does that say about our positions? And I think it also, this is kind of new for me now, but just the idea that in the same way that toxic masculinity is toxic for men, it is certainly toxic for women, because what's wrong with being strong? What's wrong with being strong as a driver or whatever? And what's wrong with being weak? What's wrong with being weak? We all desire to be nurtured. We all desire to be protected. And to deny that, which is also one of the keys of patriarchy, is to deny our very essence of ourselves. Our normal human need, right from birth, is to be cared for and to depend on others. And yet that is, as we grow older, that is certainly seen as weak. And we are made to be like, well, you're older now, you're an adult now, you need to get over that, right? You can't be crybaby anymore. And yet that is actually traumatizing. That disconnects us from ourselves. It disconnects us from our feelings and our bodies. That breathing exercise, Lindsey, you did at the very beginning, I love that. And yet certainly in a corporate setting, it's so quickly dismissed because that doesn't, it's not productive, doesn't earn any money, takes up time. And why is it such a sissy thing to do, right? Again, this anti-women, pro-patriarchy language.
Yes. This is Lindsey. First, Rosie, cishet woman based in Canada, single. If anybody would like to reach out to me privately, I will be judging all potential candidates before you connect with her. So there's that. Two, yes, in terms of the ways that even as we are saying that as women, we want to be regarded as quote unquote equal in our relationships at home, in our work relationships, in our parental relationships, yet we often are pushing away those same attributes that we're saying we want to have freedom to express. There's a thing that in organizations we refer to as queen bee syndrome. Type it in, save it, look it up later. But where we talk about how in systems where patriarchal or attributes that we associate with patriarchal traits, that women feel as though they have to take on those same traits, and then they become the most vengeful, the most exacting in those traits because there's a scarcity mindset. There's only a few roles at the top for women. And so we are going to judge other women even more harshly than we were judged to make sure that they do not usurp us at the top. While also thinking about how we then bring that into our partnerships. This thing around, for little girls of my generation, definitely, first it was this language of tomboy, right? I wasn't just a girl who liked sports. I wasn't just a girl who liked any plethora of things that I was engaged with. I was a tomboy because I was doing things that we associated with boys. But now we see on social media, everything is about glorifying the strong woman, the strong mother, the, kind of multi-armed woman who's capable of doing all of these things at once, and she does it with her hair in a top knot, never breaking a sweat, or maybe her sweat smells like perfume. I don't know. But what is that like? Is that useful to us either, Amy? Always having to be, we're either weak or we're always strong?
Oh gosh, no. I mean, it's I've got my mother coming out of my mouth a lot today. You damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. There's no way to. It's pressure regardless to achieve the unachievable, and whether it's beauty standards or your ability to juggle all of the things all of the time and always be smiling. And I mean, it's saying we're assuming that dichotomy of the binary. We could do like an hour on all of that. But in those prescribed gender roles, it's damning on both sides of it, because either you have to be doing all of the juggling or you have to be doing none of the juggling. And there isn't any sort of gray area or in between. It doesn't leave room for the guys who want to be dads and who want to be active in that role of a dad. It doesn't leave any room for a mom to actually do those things if that's what she wants. We're taking choice right on out of it.
Mm. Mm. This is Lindsey. Amy, there's somebody on the call who right now is going, God, I wish I was a lesbian. Then I wouldn't have to deal with that. Right? Why didn't God just make me a lesbian so I don't have to deal with men? Right? Is that true?
Oh God,
Does
I
it
wish.
show up in the LGBTQIA community as well?
This is Amy. Yes, actually, it's, I mean, Amani said it earlier, it's the air we breathe. It is absolutely everywhere and in everything. And it's in every relationship. Now, I think, are there some lessons to be learned from the queer community about balance in relationships and in about talking about people's strengths, and maybe in learning that you aren't always the strong one, or you aren't always the crier, or there isn't an always to anything? I think is really pretty amazing. It's lovely to, you know, be able to cry at every movie, assorted commercials, and all the other things, and also change the tire if I have to. Thanks very much. There's no all or nothing. But yeah, no, there's definitely patriarchy. If you look at gay organizations across the US, nearly all of them are still run by white men. A few token ones have white women at the helm, but it's all still pretty pasty.
Yeah.
There's intersectionality hasn't gotten very far, and there is definitely still bias.
Yeah.
And there is very, very much still patriarchy.
This is Lindsey. Amani, Rosie already alluded to, and Amy earlier on, about the ways that this shows up in organizations. And what if I'm a leader and I think, well, first I think, you know, all those traits that I still associate with women, you know, we can't always be talking about our feelings. We can't always be making time to cry. We can't, you know, slow down enough to have time for a community, because that means that we're not going to be excellent. We're not going to be able to get this done or that done or this done. Is that still patriarchal thinking?
I mean, I would, this is Amani, I would definitely say so. You know, I would say that this, at least, you know, Western colonial patriarchy, you know, one could argue that there are different kinds of patriarchy around the world and throughout time, and that they aren't all about extracting as much product from an environment and from the people as possible. But definitely this patriarchy for sure. And, you know, we're at a point where there are plenty of organizations, especially tech organizations with a lot of money to play around with things. They've actually discovered that it's more productive to have people be happy and have people be healthy and have people be holistically taken care of. And unfortunately, that most often happens, as far as I know, in very white spaces, very male dominated spaces, who are making a lot of money. So they got plenty of cushion already. But at least that science and those studies, you know, are there, and you can no longer really justify militaristic workhorse model as being about productivity, actually. So I'm curious what else it's about, and how much it's old thinking, and how much it's about, you know, not allowing people to really be in touch with themselves, because if they were, then they wouldn't be doing those jobs, or everything would have to change.
Mrs. Lindsey, can you say more about that? Because there's something about I think last week in our newsletter, we were talking about the quote, when we stop hating others, then we have to finally look at ourselves. For the man on this call who's grappling, what has been your practice in this, who's grappling with wanting to heal those lessons that have been taught from a very young age, that your identity as a man is built upon the backs of women? How do you begin that healing practice?
Yeah, thank you. This is Amani. You know, so like all healing, it really is a divestment process from systems of violence and systems of extraction, and a reinvestment process with the self. And so there's a turning towards the self as the place of power and the place of peace, and a turning towards the self in a holistic way. So there's a, who am I? What do I feel? What is it actually like to be me? And what's not working? And why, what's the strategy that I'm using to meet, and what's the need, and what strategies aren't working? And how can I change the strategies to meet the needs? And the more that we feel and sense, and part of the way that all systems of oppression work is they necessitate us to not be in touch with our own power. Even those who are most powerful, the billionaires of our world, still feel like they don't have enough, most of them, right? And are still trying to amass more and more power and wealth. And so I noticed as a man, especially as a Black man, one of my blind spots was not feeling like I had power in this world. So how could I be perpetrating patriarchy? How could I have power over women when they've taken all my power? And I noticed that white folks feel that way when they feel defensive, or when they feel like I've worked my ass off. And so that's just a nature of the way of systems of oppression. And so we really have to come into contact with our own sense of self, and our sense of self, just our presence, just being in intimate contact with ourselves. That's what power is, because naturally, if we're in touch with ourselves, then we're going to be put in touch with the moment, with the world, with others. And so from there, we then begin this shifting from power over to power with, to power between, to power within. And then there's a whole bunch of healing that has to happen, forgiveness, and relearning how to be in relationship, and moving past fear and shame and guilt, and all of that, though, is just a turning inward and a being present and getting support to do that.
This is Lindsey. First, Amani, if I can make an offering, another way that we might say blind spots are the places that I have not perceived yet.
Thank you so much. Forgive me.
Thank you for receiving. This practice of a turning within, not looking for my power externally through the stuff that I own, through the people that yeah, Rosie, add on. There's just so much more. One of the things I say all the time, I'm working on my book, and one day I'll actually put it out. But one of the things I wrote a whole chapter on was, beware of the person that defines their power externally. What does it mean to define our power or find that source from within?
What does it mean to find it from within? This is Rosie. I think what's coming up for me as you asked that, Lindsey, and sort of also what Amani was bringing up for me is just it's not actually about power. I think that's what we're conditioned, right, to look for, to aim for, because that's how you survive. Never mind even getting ahead. We are trained to survive and believe that everyone else is out to get us, and how we love our families, how we care about the people we really care about, is to protect them and to, at all costs, get as much as we can. What I'm hearing actually from Amani, and I think this is a great example for all men and all women, because women can also fall into the trap of men are just like that. Men are terrible, we hate men, they suck, whatever. What I hear from Amani is, and I don't know Amani at all, so I'm making this up, but I feel a sense of self-love and self-respect. And I think that's also where the looking within, Lindsey, is maybe finding power, but even more importantly, finding a sense of worth from self-love. Because if Amani or any one of us, so if I am completely loving and empathetic of myself, then I won't be as threatened. If another woman is competing with me for whatever, for the same job, or if like talking about intersectionality, if let's say a Black woman is saying that I as an Asian woman am racist or whatever it is, like there's so many ways that we can hate on each other, right? That's just the reality. But when we are loving of ourselves, the more we love ourselves, the more we can love other people. And so it's about, for me, not just saying the words, like it's all well and good to say to somebody, you should be more compassionate, we need to be more empathetic, but how are you going to get there? And that for me is also the action item for any of us to take. It's to not just like, right, I need to be more empathetic, right? I need to stop hating men, hating women. Well, how are you resolving that? What are you afraid of? What's holding you back? It is scary as hell. It's painful. It shouldn't be done alone. It should be done in community, maybe with a therapist or a counselor or a coach. But that is just as necessary if you're sincere about allyship, if you're sincere about doing something to support other people. You got to work on yourself too.
This is Lindsey. You know, last month we were talking about if you're doing the work to, you know, eradicate, dismantle anti-Blackness, you should have some receipts. And similarly, in this work, if you are learning or unlearning hatred of women, irregardless of your gender identity, you know, in my own experience, it sometimes makes me want to vomit, right? It's in here. I don't have a word for this. It's cellular. It's deep in the bones, this conditioning that you have been taught to hate your very bones. Think about it. We're all standing in front of the mirror every morning going, I hate my hair, my nose, my lips, my, my thighs, everything. Also, I think a song, but these ways that we are going down into a deep somatic space to find that love. And again, as you said, Rosie, even as we say that, to find that self-love, I invite all of you in our audience thinking about, what does that word bring up for you? When I say find that love, do you find that there's a cynicism that comes up? Do you find that there's a part of you that just, you know, wants to be skeptical about that woo-woo shit? That love, right? We're a pretty basic animal. Fear and love and connection. Everything really boils down to those two things. And if one of those most basic things, the sound of saying that at the root of everything is you finding that core love, that is the beginning of the activist journey. If that feels distant, something to fear, something that is bringing up skepticism in you, that is certainly where your work begins. Get off the picket line and get on to the couch with somebody who can hold you through that work. And our revolution in this space, as we think about dismantling patriarchy, I'm so excited by all these male leaders who are stepping up to be the voice of male counseling, male coaching, male hand-holding. If you haven't watched it, everybody write it down, Cave of Abdallah. Maybe, babe, can you drop down his name and the name of the thing? You can watch it on ESPN. He also has a great book, but all about male healing and accessing that space for men. That is what your revolution is going to look like, men. And we need your support in this revolution. Damn, we actually need you to lead it and start by healing those wounds within yourself. Let's invite some people up from the audience who have some questions, who have some thoughts, who have some reflections that they would like to pose to Rosie, Amy, and Imani. You can either just come off of mute or raise your hand or drop it in the chat and we will read it aloud for you. Altagracia, is that a kind of question talking about raising sons? Do you want to come up and say it aloud?
Hi, love. I was just firing off in the chat box, but guess what? I'm gonna form it into a question.
Oof.
Okay, let's go. I think something I'm sitting with, and I've had this conversation many a times, right? When in discussions like this about like the chicken and the egg and like the cycle that continues rather, right? Like I'm thinking about women raising sons and how much like there's this history of parents, and I'm saying women because like, all right, the numbers, right? The statistics about who truly is in the household more often for whatever reason is women, right? Raising the children. And so, and how much grace is given to young boys versus young girls, right? And even how there is an expectation for young boys to be, you know, whatever, strong men and whatever that looks like. But then is women also doing that because of how we're socialized? And so then the young boy grows up to be a young man who continues a cycle and then behaves in the household like his father did and shrinks his wife. And then the cycle continues and continues. So I'm thinking about generational trauma and cycles and how do we break that and hold all accountable to making sure youth carry forward the future we want to see. Was that a question or was it a statement? Maybe all in one, right?
I liked it from all angles and cycles and flavors and turns.
It's all love. That's right. It's
It was all
love.
of it. Everybody, if you're not already, you should follow Altagracia on LinkedIn, another DEI and liberation leader who graces us with her presence. Imani, for you, you spoke about your journey, your conditioning as a young human who identified as male. What in that experience allowed you to be here in this moment sharing about a man who is allowing all of his humanity to be present, / what is it that you would coach other mothers and fathers around how to allow our sons to experience their full humanity?
I love that question. This is Imani. Yeah, let's see. Shout out to my mama Lisa and to my papa Harrison and to their community, our community, to all my uncles and aunties. I was always encouraged to be in touch with my feelings. I was always encouraged to honor them, to express them, to be curious about what they are and why they're there and what that means I need. I was given language to talk about them. I was asked about them. I was held with them. I was also made aware, maybe sometimes I wonder if it was too early, of systems of oppression. And, there was a lot of understanding that I had at a very young age about white supremacy and about sexism and patriarchy and extractive capitalism and all of that. So I had an idea of why these things were happening and where they were coming from, and that they were not meant to be useful or helpful or healthy to me. They were meant to harm me and to take from us. I had role models. My uncles cried at movies and cried when they felt like it. And I had adults who listened to me and encouraged my passions and what mattered to me. I was read to a lot and had a lot of great books to read, and read bell hooks in high school, middle school, read Sabonfu, had access to a lot of different thinkers in the world as well. Um, I had women who made visible the pain that they experienced from patriarchy, from violence against women, from misogyny in many different ways, from my mother to my partners to my friends. So I saw it firsthand, and with the analysis I had, it was very like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this. I'm impacted by this. I don't ever want to take part in this. Yeah,
Yes.
that's some of it.
Yes, this is Lindsey. Amani, thank you for that. And I think growing up in the Black community, for me, that was definitely not something that I saw was accessible for Black men. It's still very much that fraternity, they were out doing amazing things within the community, yes, but I, think I saw my father, I've seen him cry maybe 2 or 3 times. And, when his parents passed and when watching the movie The Boxer, which is by all accounts, one of the saddest movies of all time. So we all get that. But I think that's something powerful to, at a young age, to see how important it is for young Black men to be able to access that part of themselves, but also, as Rosie's saying, knowing that some of the lack of access to those emotions can be because of the environment in which they exist, where life or death is very much on the line every day, in which case any show of weakness is an invitation to putting your life very much at risk. And we've said on this show before, ask yourself, how many times have you ever seen a Black woman cry at work? And similarly, when is the last time you ever saw a Black man cry? Ben Ruler, I'm going to put you on the spot because just recently I was reading a LinkedIn post that you were making about your father as well. And I think you and Amani are starting to talk about the ways that we generationally can disrupt generational patterns of the way that we socialize men. That this is a learned behavior, this hatred of women, this hatred of anything feminine, and that we have the power to disrupt patterns that have been handed down to us. And so in this post, you were talking about your father and how that has influenced you. Can you now respond to Altagracia's question? How do we raise ourselves and raise Sorry, the children have come home from school, so now they're coming in and out asking for chips because they know that I'm on this call with you all. Yeah, Ben, what would you say?
Oh gosh, well, thanks. Yeah, I think the introspection and work on self is crucial. I was a latchkey child, and I would come home from school with a key because my parents work full time. I'm a Generation X, and I would do 2 things when I would come home by myself. I would eat too much and watch TV, watch a lot of TV and all those sitcoms, So I started going back over the pandemic, watching these sitcoms like Cheers that I would just watch mindlessly. One of the first episodes of Cheers, Sam, the white male bartender in power, sexually assaults his female subordinate at work, and it's the laugh track plays. She does like a backflip to get out of it, and it's a comedy scene. Don't even think about that kind of stuff, right? And all these messages that we've been given, and so now, that's why I love this unlearning and this stuff that we've internalized that is just so messed up. And I have a deep fear of conflict. My father was amazing. My parents are amazing, but like many white people, and I have this deep fear of conflict and rocking the boat and clinging to comfort. I play pickup basketball in Wallingford every Saturday. It's a nice group of guys. I didn't know any of them before I started. There's one guy who's made comments like something like a girl. And a couple of times I've said, why are you saying like a girl? Even a little a little thing where I am risking almost nothing is still, it's still uncomfortable. And that's not okay. Like that is the least of what we should be doing, and constantly checking myself. Why am I so scared to interrupt this stuff? But a lot of it's very thankless, but it certainly has helped as a parent of being more intentional about what my kids are consuming and making sure that I can't protect them from anything, but am I supporting my kids in thinking critically about the images that they're receiving? I don't even know if I answered Altagracia's comment, but just constantly interrogating everything. And I think Rosie was saying in the beginning, it doesn't take bad intention. I've had great intentions my whole life, and I have the humility now to admit I've probably caused immense harm, despite having great values and morals and role models and intentions, mostly because of clinging to the status quo and not being brave enough to interrupt things. So this is the stuff I'm working on with myself to be a better disruptor and dismantler. And, I'm a work in progress. And that's why I've really appreciated Amani's candid reflections on how we are unlearning this and how do we have radical self-love and awareness to wake up tomorrow a little bit better and more informed today, because it's hard to support change externally when we are still that same inside. So that's why I'm a big proponent of self-love and care therapy and in investing in ourselves. Wow. Thank you for that space.
Thank you. Thank you. As we prepare to leave this space, this is Lindsey, forgive me. As we prepare to leave this space, Amani, Rosie, Amy, and if we imagine that your final thoughts are a seed that you want to plant, as always, maybe a tree that you will not sit under and benefit from its shade. But if there's a seed that you want to plant as we continue our practice of unlearning hatred of women. It's Women's Month, and for about a month, we'll all think about this person that actually invented that, or this person who actually got us to space, and this person, right? But what's the seed that you want to plant to leave us with, Amy?
This is Amy. Oh dear, I'm first. I think what I want to plant with everybody is something that you gave me, Lindsey, which was when you're watching TV or you are consuming whatever media you are consuming, the moment that you see something that is depicting something negative about the people, whether it is misogynist or racist or homophobic, change it, stop watching. And I found that a lot of the media that I consumed without really thinking about it, that I put on while I'm eating dinner, I get to watch about 4 minutes of it before I'm changing the channel, maybe, if I'm real lucky. And how we look at things turns into how we talk about things. What we take in is what we put back out again. And so somebody who gets to take things in and then put that culture out there in the world, look at how you're looking and who you're looking at.
Wow. This is Lindsey. Rosie?
There's a reason that my D in my JEDI acronym, and the acronym is Justice, Equity, Decolonization, and Inclusion. There's a reason for me it's about decolonization specifically, because I think unlearning and decolonizing go hand in hand, and patriarchy and colonization also go hand in hand. I did a little informal research once about what is matriarchy? Are there matriarchies in the world? And the ones that, at least that I could find out about, that still exist today are ones that are mostly uncolonized, were either never colonized or was able to get rid of the colonizers. That really says something. And when we learn, as I've been learning from Indigenous communities here in Turtle Island and what we now call Canada, and it is a better way of living, not because of one thing or another, but I would say, I think that the way we think things are good now, why are we still suffering from burnout? Why are we all like, we have good jobs with good pay, or some people do, but are they really deeply satisfied? Is this actually meeting our needs? Would we say that this is a great way of life? So this is Rosie. So as my, I don't know, maybe a final takeaway or final word, I feel like somebody needs to hear this today. You are enough. You're enough and you deserve more. And that is true, I believe, regardless of your gender, regardless of your race or any identity that you hold. Part of the problem of patriarchy and the capitalist world that we live in now is that you're constantly being made to feel that you're not enough and you don't deserve anything more. And there's nothing better for you out there. In fact, you should just be grateful for what you have. No, that's not true. It's not true. You are enough and you do deserve more.
Yes. Yes. Mrs. Lindsey, I guarantee you somebody needed to hear that today. Yes. Yes. Amani?
This is Amani. Thank you. Yeah, as we're shifting our gazes and what we take in away from the toxic, and as we're turning our gazes to the sacred and to the enoughness, to the inherent worth that we are and that we have, and that our lives can and should mirror in our ecologies. Yeah, I would say, like, get in touch with the sacred through all of that, and embrace what has been given to women as in this society as the sacred, to femininity as the sacred, especially for men folks or for folks of systemically violated and extracted from communities who have had to put hard shells of toxic masculinity up. And then I would specifically invite all the men folk here to join a men's group, to read some books, to like talk with your male friends, to take that risk that Brother Ben was talking about, like find your power in being vulnerable and to try on the vulnerability both of disrupting in yourself and in the world, and in how you're getting support to do that.
Wow. This is Lindsey. As always, friends, community, beloved, thank you for going on this journey with us. Thank you for holding this space for one another. We encourage you to jump online where the conversation will continue on LinkedIn in our Unlearning group. And as Amy, Rosie, Amani are saying, if you need a reminder that you are enough and you are loved, I'm literally just an email away. My heart is big enough to remind you that you are loved and that we have need of you. We'll see you next month.
All right, I'm gonna move everybody into the waiting room, which is party town for participants. And nothing happens there, but you can party. Okay. Great show, everybody. That was so wonderful. I'm like, cannot tell you how much better I feel now than the beginning of that.
Oh, sweetie.
I've just been in the stream of the chat, so it's great to be back with you in real time. But how is everybody feeling? Is there anything top of mind?
I always wish we had an extra half an hour. I'm like, I could sit here in this space with all of these amazing folks for longer. That would be lovely. Please, thank you.
Yes.
But
I always wish we were actually in person on like couches with our feet tucked up. You know, one day.
Yeah.
goals. Let's set that as a goal, please. Yes.
Mm.
I like
Yeah,
that.
there's so much more to talk about. And wanting to respond to, like, first of all, Lindsey, you asked amazing questions. Just it's like so in tune. I felt like you were in tune and you're just picking up on things. I loved it. And I wanted to respond to, like, Amy and Imani said such thought-provoking things. Amy, I'm the opposite end of you on the height spectrum, relatively speaking, where I'm 4'9". And you know what? I appreciate you opened my eyes. You changed my lens to a different perspective of, oh, if I was just tall, all my problems would be solved because all my problems have had to do with me being short. Right. So it's like, yeah, you know what? It's anybody, again, outside of that, whatever, that median curve, right? Anybody that's not the Barbie image, the thing that white supremacy tells you is the good, then you're not, right? You don't belong. So thank you for opening my eyes to that. I'm vibing with that.
Absolutely. It took me a long time to not slouch, to not try to shrink myself in every situation. And if we were standing together, I would show you, I can stand at 6 feet and I can immediately shift my weight and bend my knee a little bit and get down to about 5'6", because I've learned that there are situations where it's good to have power and there are situations where it is beneficial to me to disappear. And if I get shorter, then I disappear. And so as soon as I realized that I did that and could do that, it was like, oh, who is disappearing in my world? And who do I need to pay attention to? Because my best friend is 5'2" on a good day and in the right shoes. And so I see you. I understand that because I've grown up with her. And I don't know what it is to stand in that size of a frame, but I know what I've seen her experience in walking through the world that is so different than what I have.
Yeah. Imani, didn't mean to make you the voice of all men there.
The honor.
But was there anything you wish you had said that you didn't?
I mean, there's so much more to say. I'm not sitting with anything like, oh, on the tip of my tongue, I wish I had said that. No, it's really grateful to hear from all of y'all. It's really grateful to see how much participation and resonance there was in the chat. Really grateful to be able to share what I was able to share. It's just a really beautiful conversation and panel. Echoing, really appreciating your questions, Lindsey, and really appreciating what both of y'all shared, Rosie and Amy, what all three of y'all shared.
It's a really beautiful community. This is Lindsey. It's a really beautiful community that we give all praise to Laura Kay, the way she holds and builds this space, because they do come in engaged and really talking to one another, speaking. I think people are starting to, recognize one another. You see them saying hey to one another, like, hey girl, and yet they're joining from all over, which is amazing. Some as far as South Africa. So yeah. All praise to Laura Kay. Stephanie, Jared, anything that you wanted to say that went unsaid?
No, I'm all good. You guys are powerful and just amazing.
Thank you for being here with us, making this possible. All right, friends, let's finish with a breath together as we leave this moment that has been co-created. Deep inhale in. Deep exhale out. And let us leave it wanting no more, no less than what it is and what it was. Enjoy your Wednesday afternoon. We'll see you when we do get everybody in person for that, like,
Yes.
big slumber party or something.
It
Laura.
won't
I
be a
don't know.
virtual couch. It'll be a real couch, right?
It'll be a real
Yeah.
couch. We're gonna have a summit.
Okay.
It'll be a pillow fight. I don't know. It'll be good.
I feel like we have to make the couch somehow tech enabled, so it is a virtual couch. But it's also a couch. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Augmented reality couch. Good on it.
That's right. We could meet in the metaverse.
Yeah. We'll make our own.
If Oprah can do it, we just need a couple $1 million. Then, you know, let's write her a letter. Dear Oprah, how did you zoom in with Prince Harry that day?
That's right. And call Alicia and bring her too.
Exactly. Get your girl. Let's go. All right, friends. Have a good
All right.
afternoon. Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Pro Bono, so much.